Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again and welcome you people who join us. We have this monthly meditation begin in February to try to at least calm your mind when you're facing with this war that started in February. And at that time, some people said, oh, it will end soon. However, it looks like it may end by the end of the year. I hope so. And we have been having many people who help us with this, and we have a Venerable Gamalekche and also Maji help us before, and we have a regular people who been attending. Thank you for supporting this HAIB monthly meditation peace prayer. Today, we are very lucky to have a medical doctor, Quynh. Nguyen. Okay, let me say it correctly. Quynh Nguyen, correct? Okay, she's a retired medical doctor and been very active with the community. And if you heard earlier, like Lily been sitting with her at the Sushi Foundation, and beside helping with the weekly meditation there at Sushi Foundation, she also volunteer lead a sitting with women in correctional centers and halfway houses. That's very important for those women to be able to learn how to cope with their own mental and physical health. In terms of the meditation, Dr. Quynh start with Zen first under the guidance of Akin Roshi 38 years ago when she was a baby. And then she took up Vipassana meditation with Michelle McDonald and Stephen Smith. And also she went to Burma and then has a long retreat with Ante Gunaratana and also with the Burmese monastic of the Mahasi Sayadaw tradition with U Lakhana, U Tejaniya, and U Tusana. So we are very fortunate that to have Dr. Quynh to help us today. Thank you, Dr. Quynh.
Thank you, Purani. I want to thank everyone for having me here for our monthly prayer meditation for peace in Ukraine. As you recall, the war broke out in February 2022. And there seemed to be no ends at this point, 7 months later. There's still atrocious violence to the country. And it's so heart-wrenching to see the children being displaced from their destroyed homes and elderly having to walk long distance to find shelters, and then women and men dying on the battlefields, and the civilians being tortured by the Russian army. So I feel we are fortunate to be able to gather here to make heartfelt prayers for peace and reconciliation and healing for the population of Ukraine. Before we get to the meditation, I would like to talk a little bit about the difficult times that we are going through right now. Unless you live in a cave, you probably find that our lives have been changed upside down these last few years. There was the coronavirus, which has wreaked havoc to the entire planet. There's no country that's spared of disabilities and death from COVID. And there's also the economic hardship from that, from the pandemic. And besides that, there's always the threat of global warming that looms over us, which bring flood and wildfires and earthquakes. And the most recent is a hurricane that ravaged Puerto Rico even now. And then in the US, the country is mired in an ugly, pervasive atmosphere of hatred and divisiveness. So I think we need some help to manage ourselves through these difficult times. And I wonder, how would Prince Siddhartha react if he lived among us nowadays? What would be his feelings? And I thought maybe it's the same feelings that he had when he went on various escapades outside his luxurious palace, when he saw a sick man and an aged man and in a dead corpse. Probably he had utter distress and confusion. He asked his charioteer, "Am I too subject to old age and sickness and death?" And for sure he was. But luckily he also saw an ascetic who appeared so serene and unperturbed that probably he had a glimpse of what could be peace amid chaos and sorrow. So lucky for us, he set out to find the key to peace. And he left us a vast legacy, voluminous teachings to guide us through difficult times. And Buddha was a super physician. So he made the diagnosis. It's not so much difficult times because it has always been difficult, but the problem is suffering. That's the diagnosis. Suffering is inherent to life. To be born into human life is to be born into suffering. And then Buddha explained the pathophysiology of the disease. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, death is suffering, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, excessive despair, all suffering. Association with the hatred is suffering. Separation from the loved one is suffering. Not getting what one wishes is suffering. And in brief, the 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering. So then Buddha gave us the treatment. The treatment is the practice of the 4 divine abodes and the practice and the cultivation of wisdom through meditation. What are the 4 divine abodes? Loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. Loving kindness just bring warmth and caring to our own selves and to all beings. It's all inclusive. There's no barrier, no conditions. What loving kindness does is it softens the heart, but at the same time, it gives the heart strength to go through difficulties. And then compassion. Compassion goes a step deeper in that it leads the heart to be in touch with our own suffering and other beings' suffering. And then it generates empathy and a deep aspiration to alleviate suffering. To practice compassion takes courage because we're working from an uneasy place of discomfort and pain. And we then transform it into a positive emotion. I really like Leslie's instructions on Tonglen. It warms the heart instead of leaving the heart drown in despair. And loving kindness and compassion kind of break down the barriers between oneself and others. And it kind of, they strengthen the interconnectedness of all beings. And in difficult times, there's a sense of solidarity and that alleviate loneliness and despair. Now, empathetic joy is the ability to rejoice in our own success as well as others' happiness. I find that in difficult times, I really like to practice empathetic joy. I find it very uplifting, and being able to just be happy with other people's happiness. It's very heartwarming and it's very inspiring. So when I read about various European countries helping the Ukrainian refugees, for example, especially Poland, who opened their arms to help the refugees, it's very heartwarming for me. And then all the organizations bringing in donations, and then individuals helping in their own personal ways. It's good to know about all these positive actions to help. Yeah. And finally, equanimity or upekkha. It's the state of even and composed mind, which enables us to take life as it is. Buddhas talk about an equanimous mind as a mind filled with a mind which is abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility, without ill will. That's a wonderful state of mind. And so besides these four divine abodes, Buddha also offered the cultivation of wisdom through meditation. We, the untrained mind, we want to have stability. We want to have life a certain way. But the truth is, we have no control over it. The more we want to control, the more we want to micromanage, the greater is suffering. And so the meditative mind realizes that all phenomena are impermanent, unpredictable, uncontrollable. And we understand that uncertainty is a reality of life. And the only way to deal with uncertainty is to embrace it, to surrender to it, to make peace with changes and uncertainty. And how do we let go of the control is to stay in the present moment, to just take each moment as it comes. So there's no past to regret, no future to be anxious about. And we greet each moment without expectations or preconceived idea. Then we have serenity and peace of mind. So there we have the treatment, the 4 immeasurables, and the cultivation of wisdom. And I would like to end here with this poem by Mary Oliver called Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it has. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are inviting us into the landscape. Over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountain and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high on the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Thank you. So now, I would like to invite all of us to bring stillness into our mind and to send prayers of comfort, loving kindness, compassion, to send hope for peace on the soil of Ukraine. I think we all have our own way of saying our prayers. So, but we are all united here in support and solidarity for our Ukrainian friends. And we all fervently wish for peace. So please, I will keep quiet. I will start ringing the bell. And at the end, I will invite the bell again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Quynh. I really enjoy your introduction and make me think, what would the Buddha look at this situation? You know, even in his time, over 2,600 years ago, there always war and among all those small kingdoms. And it made me ponder how is conflict, as in terms of the sociologist, conflict is part of life. How do we handle conflict is the key, right? And you did give a very good example about the teaching, the main thing of that, loving kindness, compassion, mudita, and ubekha, right? And so that is also a, what you call, a foundation of HAIB we have in our bylaws, and that. And you know, you yourself, when during the Vietnam War, were you in Vietnam or where are you then?
Yes, I grew up in Vietnam, in Saigon. The war was raging, I would say, from 1960s. That's when it was really going really, really bad all over the country. Lots of suffering, and until 1975, when the communists took over the country, then I got out.
Yeah, yeah. It must be very difficult at that time, you know, because I have friends who he was in the Navy and
Yes.
then had to escape by boat, and then he was telling us about his experience, right?
Yes.
And then many people, even some of the restaurant owner that I know very well, always have all this experience. And one thing that they have in common, everyone, they are able to make a new life, right? Like yourself, and then the restaurant owner, and that my since my student friend, and he was successful.
Yes, it's you know, it was a time of hardship, a lot of emotional pain. Many Vietnamese lost their wealth, their homes, their loved ones, trying to escape to other countries. And it's amazing to see that people have a resilience to start life and to be thriving in this country. And so from my experience, I felt that we should always welcome the refugees or the immigrants, because they're the new blood and they always are willing to work hard and to help the new country. So
Right.
that I learned.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And so when we,
I think my friends Tan and Nguyen are already also here.
oh,
And
yes.
yes, and they were able to build a new happy life in the United States. Yes.
And helping many other people as well, you know, like Tan and Dr. Tan as well. And when they have the sitting meditation at their house in Kahala Law many years ago.
Yeah.
And then my student from Catholic University and interested in Buddhism and went there. And they I still remember, they said Suan was very kind, give them many books and always welcome. Even they went on their own because, you know, sometimes all these students, after I introduce them and if they want to pursue it, they went on their own. Thank you so much, Tan and Suan. I remember all those days that I was sitting at their house as well.
Yes, much merit goes to Tan and Swan for all the good deeds they had done.
Right. Thank you so much. And I think that's good though, because as a Buddhist, we believe in doing good deeds, right? And so I think everyone that happy here because we have been doing good deeds in the past, right? And I mean, we have a different group, we have different tradition. Theravada and Lily is the Tibetan, and I think Mary, Elaine, the Chin Buddhist, right? And so I think, but everyone different practice in details. But I think the main thing that we focus on being have a compassion, loving kindness, because we all have a different way of looking at the situation. So if we are able to understand people at different way, right?
Yeah.
And so you know one thing though, because you're a medical doctor, and I have been, as I've mentioned to you, I follow all this YouTube, and we do have a medical doctor, a very young one, and then he just got into the priesthood, the monkhood for about 6 months. That usually the Thai men doing that, and after that he having tried to explain this connection between the body and mind in terms of, you know, the Buddhist way and then into the medical term. So because you're also a medical doctor, and maybe Tan can jump in also, because I always want for him to come and share that knowledge with us, and he said he couldn't because the English is not the first language and that is difficult. So since we have you, Dr. Quynh, and then you also a medical doctor, would you maybe able to help us to understand, you know, how we understand from the Buddhist, the mind and the body, and in terms of the
Yes.
the medical term, could you please explain that?
Yeah, I will try.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's say we talk about anxiety, for example, and fear. I think it's universal whether you talk in Buddhist terms or in medical term, right? But I think that the treatment that Western medicine give is just pills to kind of alleviate the symptoms, but we don't get to the roots of the problems like Buddhist practice. So that's the difference, I think.
Okay. So if I make up, people, please join me if you have any question. So we would like to kind of open up as well. So for example, anxiety, in terms of the Buddhist, the anxiety, how how do you see it? Is that the mind that got disturbed, and so like for in terms of medical, the physical one, when you have anxiety, usually, for example, you start to have stomach ache, headache, right?
Yes, I think Western medicine recognized the connection between a mental difficulty which manifests in the body. So let's say I'm talking like stress, for example. Many people develop ulcers of the stomach from stress.
Mhm.
And from the Buddhist point of view, any symptom in the mind manifests in the body. That's why when we meditate, we say, I have fear. Fear is in the mind, but fear also manifests in the body as like the heart beats very fast, the muscle tense up, you feel heat in the head. And so all of these physical symptoms are very uncomfortable. And so we interpret fear or stress as something unpleasant because we experience unpleasant symptoms in the body. So I see the connections from the Buddhist point of view as well as from the Western medical point of view. I hope that seems clear.
Yes, and then maybe if I can go a little bit further, because sometimes I talk with some of the Buddhist monk here, and then I said, yeah, and how could you try to get rid of those things that unpleasant? So again, I'm just talking from the Theravada
Yeah.
perspective. So
Yeah.
so he said yes, and actually it's just like meditation also. When you sit and then there's something like disturb you, you can make a note, right? But I learned also from Michelle, and so you make a note that that thing is kind of disturbing. You make a note and then let it go.
Right. That Theravada practice is whether it's something pleasant or unpleasant, whether it's in the body or in the mind, our practice is to get in touch with that, to show up for whatever arises at each moment.
Mhm.
And we are deep in contemplation, then we realize that it doesn't last very long. It comes and then it goes. It comes and then it goes. It's not anything solid. And so then we don't feel threatened by it. And we're able to just let it be. And like you said, once you can let it be, then you can let it go.
Yeah, because we know that nothing is permanent. It's come and go, right? Yeah, so I think that kind of interesting because in the medical term, they try to pinpoint, okay, this is, they call it cause and effect. Yeah, you have stress and you have a problem with your stomach, you have ulcer and all that. And then if like you said, if it now the many times the Western medicine is try to look into what you call the mindfulness, right? You know, because of the what his name, John Kabat-Zinn, right? He introduced that, and
Right.
then even that many hospital, even Kaiser, even have free class for people to try to understand, to cope with their illness through mindfulness.
Yeah,
So,
I think psychotherapists now use mindfulness practice as a way to help their patients with neurosis, with mental problems. Yes.
yeah.
I think medicine has recognized the helpfulness of mindfulness practice.
Right. And then even when Dalai Lama was so popular, and so MIT want to try to prove this, right? In terms of the Western, they have to do research and have a data to prove. And so they invite some of the Tibetan monks, and so they measure their heart rate and everything. It's very interesting, and they said yes, it's proven that when you can sit and meditate, your heart rate and everything is become like a much better.
Yeah. We come with the term neuroplasticity, in that meditation can actually change the anatomy of the brain, like certain areas in the brain that deal with emotions change with meditation practice.
Right. And
it's very interesting, and I'm sure we'll find more and more with research. Yes.
And also it even linked with cancer patients. We have lots of people, I think everyone here have friend or someone that die of cancer and all that. And it have proven that because they cannot pinpoint, right? Because the cancer cell is within your body. You cannot. I've been have kind of interest in this, and many doctors said there's no one cause for cancer because it's the way that the body react to survive, right? And the cells just become a bigger, and at the end it's kind of destroy as a cells just to survive. And so also one thing that, because if you can understand that and try to get rid of, I think the main cause again, stress. That stress is the cause of all problem in terms of physical problem. So the mind and body is so much connected. And so the Buddha himself, like you said, is a great physician, right? He see the cause and the effect, and we are very fortunate that we follow in his path and try to.
Yes.
So I should allow everyone else to ask questions before we closing. I think Roger, the one who close, he here on the iPhone, right? Roger, you here, right?
I'm here. Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Roger, because I saw your name earlier and then I saw iPhone, so I, best guess that
I know. I'm actually on 2 iPhones. And I'm driving a car that I'm stopping now.
Oh
So
yes, please.
I'm doing 7 things at once.
You have to do one thing at one time, Roger, to be
No, I'm doing
mindful.
7 things at once, and it's all through my neuroplasticity.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anyway, before we end this, and then our official, anyone would like to ask any question? We have Dr. Quynh here. I really benefit a lot. So I would like to open it up for anyone else. Please just unmute yourself and ask Dr. Quynh.
Well, I'm very fascinated by what you're saying, Dr. Quynh, and I think it's great. I've been a student of Chinese medicine a little bit for many years, almost 50 years now. And I studied with an acupuncturist, and there are very few people like you who have this great knowledge of Western medicine and Eastern medicine. Do you see it coming more into play in the United States? Do you see a growth in the integration of East and West medicine?
Yes, I do. I noticed one thing is we don't call the Chinese medicine or the Eastern approach, we don't call it alternative anymore.
Uh-huh.
Call it integrative.
Yes.
So attitude. And you could see at various well-known clinics like Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, there's always some form of Eastern approach for patients, like acupuncture, yoga, meditation. So I see more and more acceptance of Eastern treatment into Western mainstream. Yes.
That's great. 25 years ago, I was on the board of trustees of the Queen's Hospital, the largest hospital here in Hawaii. And they were just calling it alternative medicine and just beginning to bring that kind of thing. So 25 years later, it sounds like they're making a lot of progress.
Yes, I remember when I was in practice, maybe 25 years ago, there was someone who came to talk to us about meditation. And doctors who were at the conference left early because they felt this is nonsense. And now you see mindfulness practice everywhere. Many psychotherapists are using mindfulness practice. This is quite a change. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. I remember when I was a trustee, the office of it was called the Office of Alternative Medicine at NIH in Bethesda, Maryland, and they were just beginning to talk about it. And now I guess they have hundreds of millions of dollars for research in many of our medical schools. So I guess that's going to change even more then.
Right. I know certain medical school. There's one school in Texas that introduced mindfulness practice to the medical students. And they don't call it meditation practice. They call it stress busters practice.
Yes. Well, there's John Kabat-Zinn's program that's called mindfulness-based stress reduction. That's become incredibly popular, and it's also 40 years in the making. But he got that directly from Tibetan Buddhism.
Yes. And but one thing that chagrined me is that he tried to strip the stress-based reduction of all Buddhist connotations
Uh-huh.
to the mainstream. I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, he was trying to make it acceptable in those days. It certainly doesn't need it anymore. Yeah. Well, we'll get there. And now I think there's some great Chinese people coming to the United States, not just people who went over there and brought it back. We're getting more and more good teachers from China and elsewhere in Asia to come here.
Yeah.
Maybe it will truly be integrated soon. Well, thank you so much. It's so interesting to hear from you.
Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you, Roger. It's about time that we, if no one has any more questions, so I think it's about time that we will end this official program with the reading of Metta Sutta, and Roger will read it, and I will share the screen. And because the wording is also talk about all living being. And so I have a graphic that is not just all human being. So the non-human is also being. So I will share the screen, and then people will get to see and follow the reading on the screen, and Roger will help read that for us.
One of the people in my car said she's non-human.
Oh, she's non-human? Okay.
That's what she said. So this will be for her.
Oh, all right. Okay. So, okay, I have it share on the screen, and then I will see, you can see that little non-human, so cute there. Okay. Okay, Roger, please. Oh. Are you there, Roger?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
May all beings be happy. May they be joyous and live in safety. All living beings, whether weak or strong, in high or middle or low realms of existence, small or far, born or to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another, nor despise any being in any state. Let none by anger or hatred wish harm to another. Even as a mother, at the risk of her life, watches over and protects her only child, so with a boundless mind should one cherish all living things, above, below, and all around, without limit. So let each cultivate an infinite goodwill toward the whole world.
Okay. Thank you, Roger. I will stop the recording, and so